Sonny Hostin goes on The View and decides now would be a great time to dump all over the so-called uneducated.
What we did not have is white women who voted about 52%, right, for Donald Trump. Uneducated white women, is my understanding. You have Latino men, actually, voting more for him. And you have, and black men was not the story. We're not the story here because they voted almost 80% for the vice president.
Right. Just because you didn't go to college doesn't mean you're stupid, and it doesn't mean that you don't have wisdom. You can go to college and get a bunch of irrelevant facts about how men can allegedly give birth or whatever they teach. But I said this to our team. I said working people, the muscular class, including working...
Sonny Hostin continues to be America's most reliable reminder that a Harvard law degree doesn't come with a common sense guarantee. This perpetual TED Talk on how to be confidently confused has once again delivered a take so absurd that even Charlie Kirk, yes, that Charlie Kirk, had to set aside his usual patriotic PowerPoint rants just to clean house using the most underrated weapon of all, basic logic.
Accept the View's apology?
I mean, regardless of whether or not I accept it, the question is, do our students accept it? That's really what's at heart here. They went after our 5,000 students at our event there of high school and college kids. And look, I get attacked all the time. People say false things. I'm a public figure. But when you go after 16 and 17-year-olds that travel from across the country that then have to live for the rest of their life with a shadow over them because someone at ABC says that they might be linked to neo...
You'd think someone who talks on national TV 5 days a week might eventually stumble upon a useful insight. But no. Sonny Hostin manages the rare feat of being wrong at both the speed and volume of light. If you tried to process her logic, through a blender, the blender would break down, spit it out, and file a lawsuit for emotional trauma. But hey, look.
Look, what did it take for us to get to the point of an apology? We had to threaten a lawsuit, Jesse. And by the way, we're still entertaining it. We're talking to some of the best lawyers out there that are experts in this. And as you know, these things can be very complicated. There's a lot of facts and circumstances around it. But we're not going to let this go because you should not be able to smear 5,000 high school and college kids. And
this time, Sonny took a break from being the human embodiment of a furrowed brow and waded into political waters so murky even GPS couldn't help. She tried to take a shot at conservatives again, but with all the force of a hamster in a wind tunnel. It was like watching someone try to juggle flaming swords while wearing oven mitts. Brave, maybe. Smart? Definitely not.
The reason they felt they needed to do that, Jesse, is because if they told their audience the truth, that when gas is the most expensive it's been, flights are super expensive, that 5,000 kids decided to spend a weekend in summer traveling across the country to go hear from conservative speakers, maybe the audience of The View would think twice about all of their ideas. That's why they felt so compelled to try to smear our wonderful summit this last week.
Yeah, they have nothing else to talk about. Maybe you should get the lawyer that worked on that Covington Catholic school case. What was that, a $200 million settlement? I think, Charlie, you could use the money. And your student, Steph.
And let's not forget, Sonny doesn't just serve bad takes, she marinates in them. She wraps them in a condescending grin, adds a sprinkle of misapplied legal jargon, and calls it journalism. Honestly, the only thing more cooked than her opinions is the credibility of anyone who still thinks she's making points.
Downvote on a referendum on a highly complicated, very emotional, very personal issue, and it turned out the American people were like, yeah, actually, these other 6 things matter more, and good for them.
By the way, Sonny Hostin, I think, went to Notre Dame. Her son's at Harvard. Her daughter's at Cornell. She's married to the Ivy League, and that's why she looks down on everyone else as a bunch of...
Charlie Kirk, for better or worse, seems to run on 3 things: Red Bull, flag lapel pins, and unshakable conviction. He probably starts his mornings reciting the Constitution while brushing his teeth with a bootstrap. But even he looked stunned by the tidal wave of delusion coming from Sonny Hostin, like someone had hooked up a broken espresso machine of smug directly to her microphone. This wasn't a debate. It wasn't even a disagreement. It was like watching a chess grandmaster, forced to play against a cat who brought a toaster to the board and insists she's already won. And in this metaphor, Sonny is the toaster, flashing with misplaced confidence, emotionally charged, and making arguments as coherent as a motivational poster written in crayon. At one point, forehead creased, voice dripping with performative concern, Sonny casually announced that conservative values are a threat to democracy. No irony, no self-awareness, just straight-faced panic that people thinking differently might somehow endanger freedom. This from the same person who treats government overreach like it's a warm, comforting hug from Big Brother. You couldn't script it better. It's already a sitcom. And Sonny's playing both the lead and the punchline.
Some evidence to show this more than anything else, that we look at how we elect our leaders in two buckets: stupid and smart. And the stupid people are the people that don't have a certificate from Yale, and the smart people are $200,000 in debt because they went to Drake. And so the breakdown, though, is that Donald Trump, which, by the way, is just smart politics, because there's more people that didn't go to college than did go to college. And I know that's really hard for the Democrats to realize, because everyone in their circle went to college, but the majority of the country actually does not have a four-year college diploma. The majority of the country are people that have two-year technical degrees or community college, or they just went to the workforce. Right?
The irony here isn't just thick, it's morbidly obese. It needs its own zip code, a mobility scooter, and maybe a Netflix docuseries. Sonny, the walking TED Talk of moral panic, is somehow the same person who thinks the Department of Education should parent your kids, run your healthcare, regulate religion, and curate your Spotify playlist. But hand out a pocket constitution? Suddenly you're a domestic threat. This isn't politics, it's performance art. Only no one's clapping. Sonny warning us about threats to democracy is like a squirrel giving financial advice. Adorable, baffling, and guaranteed to bury your savings in a park somewhere. Her idea of danger now includes parents questioning school boards and citizens who suggest taxes shouldn't look like a GoFundMe for federal failure. But when real chaos hits the streets, Sonny's armed with a thesaurus and a straight face, riots become passionate protests, looting turns into redistribution therapy, and literal violence, just a cry for help. Her poli-sci degree must have come in a cereal box, right next to the decoder ring and a free trial of delusion. Welcome to the Sonny Hostin School of Political Analysis, where free speech is oppression, disagreement is a microaggression, and any sentence that doesn't start with "as a woman of color" is automatically suspect. Watching her break down democracy is like watching someone teach algebra while being allergic to numbers.
There was what do you call it, this Turning Points conference with all the smoke. What are they, smoking something down there? Or it's like, whatever. Anyway, they were out there. They were in the front, out there in front of the conference with anti-Semitic slurs.
Whoa, the drama. Charlie Kirk's organization, Turning Point USA.
And then came Charlie Kirk. No yelling, no dramatic finger-pointing. Just that calm, practiced intensity of a guy who's been through this rodeo more times than he can count. He didn't need a whiteboard or a MAGA hat. He just stood there, raised, one eyebrow with such surgical precision it nearly triggered an HR complaint, and watched Sonny unravel like a GPS trying to recalculate in a tunnel. This wasn't a debate. It was a mercy dissection. You don't interrupt someone when they're imploding that efficiently. You just grab the popcorn and start taking notes. What's truly remarkable about Sonny is her ability to embody every elitist stereotype like it's a competitive sport. If there were an Olympic gold medal for sipping espresso while lecturing coal miners on gender theory, she'd have it proudly displayed above her fireplace, probably next to a framed selfie, with her own echo chamber. She talks about the average American the way Jane Goodall talked about gorillas, intrigued, detached, and completely convinced she knows what's best for them. You can practically hear the mental footnotes. Interesting creature. Votes against self-interest. Prefers burgers to quinoa.
Is the
Isn't he the
Republican
richest
Party.
man in the world?
Yes, he is.
Okay.
And he's not going to have any temporary hardships. But then I'm kind of rethinking my thinking, and I do think that maybe it's time for the Democrats to do a little bit of this post-mortem, because the Democratic Party has always been the party of the working class. Has always been. If you look at all the policies, they're for the people. And I think even myself, as someone who grew up in abject poverty from the Bronx, my parents lived paycheck to paycheck. They had to decide whether or not they were going to feed me.
She's the kind of person who'd fly first class to a climate change summit just to lecture Iowa farmers about riding bikes more. If elitism had a spokesperson, it would be Sunny Hostin, draped in silk, sipping imported Himalayan rainwater, and explaining the evils of capitalism from a Manhattan penthouse funded by capitalism. It's less activism, more performance art, with a side of self-importance and a generous drizzle of condescension. Every time she speaks, it's like someone turned a Harvard degree into a coaster for their organic almond milk and avocado toast. She has a rare talent for turning real issues, education, freedom, taxes, into a soup of buzzwords and moral grandstanding. Ask why your kid's math class sounds more like a sociology lecture, and suddenly you're anti-progress. Suggest lower taxes? Welcome to economic terrorism in the Sunny Hostin Dictionary of Delusion.
Hostin, who I think is truly the nastiest woman on television and a genuine racist and not that bright, despite her law degree and everything else. She found out a little bit, you know these TV shows where they tell you a little bit about your family history and your ancestry. She found out some stuff about her ancestors that, well, take a look.
Wow, I'm a little bit in shock. I just always thought of myself as Puerto Rican. I didn't think I was, my family was originally from Spain. And
Let's not forget her signature move, preaching about empowering marginalized voices right before cutting off every panel guest with a differing opinion. It's like watching someone attempt yoga on a treadmill while yelling at others for not being centered. She's a one-woman contradiction machine. Sunny's version of empowerment. Picture a megaphone duct taped to a soapbox, all tuned to whatever makes her feel like Rosa Parks and Marie Antoinette, simultaneously. And her delivery? Truly something. She drops opinions with the confidence of someone who thinks they solved world hunger by tweeting a hashtag. That level of misplaced self-assurance should be studied. It's like watching someone walk face first into a glass door and then call it a hate crime. She could be entirely, provably wrong and still speak like she's narrating a documentary about her own brilliance. You'd think, having once been a federal prosecutor, she'd show some respect for evidence. But apparently her courtroom was sponsored by Vibes, and I saw it on The View. Facts aren't really her thing. They're more like optional props. Handy when they support her narrative, discarded when they don't. Her investigative process? Scroll Twitter, nod, repeat.
She was there because of how they were treated and lied to during COVID and the political correct regime that coupled with COVID. So they lost proms, graduations, they had to wear masks, they were on Zoom class, and then during it, they were propagandized with the most ferocious, aggressive, misleading left-wing propaganda on race, on sexuality, on gender, on America that we've ever seen. And so now, 4 years later, this Gen Z was like, you know what? You guys in charge, the same people that were trying to lock up Trump, you guys materially messed up my life.
Her anthem of choice? The melodramatic America is Broken Beyond Repair remix. Because nothing says courage quite like a millionaire celebrity using 7 uninterrupted minutes of national airtime to bash the very country that gave her everything, except apparently a standing ovation at brunch. The irony is so thick it could probably register to vote. Meanwhile, Sunny's argument wasn't just weak, it was a full-on train wreck of logic. Even Charlie Kirk, who's usually about as subtle as a jackhammer during nap time, didn't need to go full red, white, and blue. All he had to do was repeat her own words back to her and let them collapse under their own contradictions. He wasn't debating. He was doing cleanup duty after a toddler meltdown. Broom in one hand, eye roll in the other. Let's face it, watching Sunny try to take on conservatism is like watching someone throw glitter at a bear and calling it a defense tactic. Not only is it wildly ineffective, it's almost endearing in the saddest way possible.
My whole life, orthopedic surgeon and husband of you host, Sunny Hostin, has been named in a federal lawsuit alleging insurance insurance fraud. She got on television. She got it. She run these women. Tell me why she got her husband's named in a lawsuit for insurance fraud. And I'm gonna show you exhibit. Let me say exhibit B when you show this to the jury. Roll it, man.
You know, doctors suffer because of big corporations as well. Doctors that want to do good, like my husband, you know, operates on someone even though they don't have insurance. And they're talking about threatening him with insurance fraud. I would say you could get about 20 years in prison. So that's a death.
Sunny Hostin doesn't just get things wrong, she's built an entire lifestyle around it. Every morning, she wakes up, adds a dash of historical revisionism to her avocado toast, and heads to The View, ready to confuse millions. And the show gives her a platform to do it 5 days a week. We've reached the point where Sunny thinks flying a flag on your porch is a sign of authoritarianism, and disagreeing with her automatically makes you a threat to democracy. Her worldview feels like a BuzzFeed quiz co-written by Karl Marx. Pick your favorite brunch item and we'll tell you what human rights abuse you're guilty of. Charlie Kirk didn't dismantle Sunny with sharper arguments. He dismantled her because she didn't bring any. She brought vibes, emotions, and a knitted scarf of moral superiority, hoping it would cover up the lack of substance. It didn't. Watching her discuss politics is like watching someone try to microwave a salad. You know it won't work, but the audacity keeps you watching. She twists logic into knots and metaphors into existential crises. Did she really just compare parental rights to oppression? Yes. And she doubled down on it. At this point, Charlie doesn't even have to try. All he has to do is sit back, let Sunny speak, and let the rest of America cringe. The real debate isn't whether her takes are wrong, it's whether they stem from honest ignorance or ideological commitment. Either way, the outcome is the same. Pure, unfiltered nonsense, and impressively consistent nonsense at that. Sunny could misread a children's book and still find a way to blame Reagan. She could burn toast and make it capitalism's fault. She could hit traffic and write a think piece on systemic oppression. She thinks she's delivering hard truths. What she's really hosting is a seance for logic, where facts go to die. Charlie didn't defeat her in debate because he was ruthless. He simply let her unravel. She monologued herself into irrelevance, while he raised an eyebrow and waited. And no, volume doesn't equal validity. Sunny could scream her entire argument into a megaphone on the moon, and it still wouldn't make sense. It's not that people aren't listening. It's that they're not sure whether she's doing political analysis or avant-garde performance art. Here's the bottom line. Sunny Hostin sees herself as the voice of reason in a chaotic world. In reality, she's more like a broken GPS telling you to drive into a lake. And when you do, she blames the lake for existing. Charlie didn't destroy her because he planned to. He destroyed her because she practically handed him the rhetorical sledgehammer and dared him to swing. And in true Sunny fashion, she probably walked away thinking she won. Because nothing says victory like getting out-argued by a guy who files his books by how much they irritate progressives.